welcome to another episode of our lovely podcast, the Cinephile's IO.
I feel like this is the happiest times of my week, bro. I enjoy recording this session proper.
You know you're a liar because we don't record every week.
This is the
That
happiest times of the weeks that we get to record.
ha
Make it feel better.
fairs. But this has been an interesting week. Tell me about your week.
My week, it was very, very busy. Surprisingly busy. I don't know, work-wise though. I've been watching. I did my Oscar watch. So for listeners of this podcast that don't know me, I do this crackhead thing every year where I try to watch every single movie that was nominated for an Oscar that I haven't seen, including the short films, including the documentaries, including the animated one. And I never succeed. I've been doing this since 2020, so this is my 5th year. I have not succeeded once. I think the most I've gotten is like 60%, which is pretty good. And this year I'm at 36% so far with a little over 2 months to go. Or 2 months to go rather. Shit, it's a month to go. It's in March. Anyway, yeah. And so I just started that, and I've been watching all these random shorts and films here that I otherwise would not see. Some good, some not so good. But yeah, that's how my week has been. What about you?
I think my week's been really similar. It's been majorly work, then just some random chaotic moments. Like yesterday I went out and
Moments.
I think
Tough.
yeah, I went out with some of like my coworkers, and I feel like it's like there's a point where you're with your coworkers that you stop seeing them as coworkers and you start seeing them as human beings. It's very Severance type talk. You get me?
Stop
Like for
seeing
anyone
my
who
coworkers
watched Severance,
as
it's very like, I don't know, like
Yeah.
for me, I just like used to be super church and state. So like,
Yes.
coworkers are coworkers.
Uh-huh.
The vibes outside personal life is personal life. We don't really,
Yeah.
you get to the office, how was your weekend? It was just a nice night in. You could have had the craziest, like, 12-hour binger,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a nice night in. But yeah, so like I went out with some of my coworkers, and it's just like, these people have experiences. They're living their own lives. They're not horrible people.
This is definitely very Severance-y.
Yeah. It's like, they're not horrible people. And then when I was out, then my coworker actually cooked. Let me tell you what he said.
Okay.
He went up to this girl, and I wrote it down because I felt it was insane. He went up to this girl, and he said, "I think we'd be doing ourselves a major disservice by remaining strangers." I said, "Yo."
Oh, word.
I said, "Yo,
Word.
what is this cook?
I need that's top though.
What is this cook?" And like,
That is
I
because it catches you off guard.
it catches you off
You're like,
guard.
I've not heard this one before. I need to know where this is coming
Bro.
from.
It's not the same. What's your name?
Yeah.
Or you look really good tonight. Or you smell great. It's not like the
It's none of
usual.
those.
Like I feel like you're gonna get points for creativity off that alone.
Yeah. I
But
need that.
I don't know how to say this, but let me stop. Let me not cook anyone right now. I just became friends with my coworkers, so let me not cook anyone right now. But yeah. So he cooked. Speaking of cooking, we're going straight into the episode for today. We're focusing on Lanthimos and Poor Things.
Yorgos
Lanthimos and Poor Things.
I've always maintained that Yorgos is a little bit, insane clinically, but I feel like he has to be. Okay, so I saw this movie last year. It's called Fingernails. It's on Apple TV.
Mhm.
And it's also by a Greek guy. And it's pretty much a healthy version of The Lobster, very similar, future, somewhat apocalyptic, but not really. But everyone needs to be in love, or you need to have a partner or something like that. And if you don't, then, repercussions and stuff like that. And I'm like, this just seems like what Yorgos was going for, like storyline wise or plot line wise, except he had to be insane and make it seem like, oh, if you don't find love, you're just depressed, or you're just like in some facility. He had to add in that element of turning yourself into an animal at the end of it. And
that's what I was gonna say. Like,
this was so unnecessary.
I was like, damn, like, maybe some of us just like to be alone. You get me? He made it, you know, if you don't find a partner, you get turned into an animal.
Like,
If you
why is
split
that
up
the
with your
only option?
partner, you have to find a partner unless you get turned into an animal. And it's
Why?
just like, okay, so I feel like The Lobster was one of those films that I watched,
Hmm.
and it was like the process of me starting calling movies film.
Okay.
You get me?
Yeah.
It was like one of those movies that you're just like, damn, this is some cinema bro stuff. So
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, bro. I
yeah,
know
I feel
exactly
like
what you
everyone goes through that moment, especially if
mean.
you really like movies. You get
Yeah.
into that moment where you're like, yeah, this is cinema, bro. This ain't casual watch. This ain't a fun time.
Yeah, it was not. I didn't know. I didn't have any quippy because I usually say something like, funny or witty on my letterbox. My letterbox review for that is blank. I didn't have anything funny to say. I'm like, ain't no joke here. This is not a joking matter, man. This isn't movie. This is cinema. You know.
Yeah,
But
The
that's
Lobster
what
is
I have
great,
to say about Yorgos.
and I think that was like one of the first times that I noticed Colin Farrell was actually like, you know, when people love to talk about how good Colin Farrell is, and for
Hmm.
me, I never really thought he was that great
Yeah.
until I saw The Lobster, and I was like, all right, my
Yeah.
bad.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. He's a somewhat like satirical. Like I think most of his roles are somewhat because even the Lobster is a black comedy. His
Yeah,
roles are somewhat satirical, but when he gets going in that like serious
he knows his
thing,
bag. That's it. He
yes, he
knows his
knows.
bag, and he knows how to say like awkward slash funny things in a very
Yes,
straight and serious manner.
except oh my, you described it really well. Yeah.
Yeah, like in last year's snub, Banshees of Inisherin.
Uh huh.
Jesus Christ, that whole he says yet like he's in English, like that whole scene in the bar, absolutely insane.
Hmm.
And he says it like so seriously, and so much of it is just deadpan, like desperation, like sadness about losing his friend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Banshees was a weird film because I would read reviews and talking about how this made them cry, and some people talking about this was so hilarious. And I'm like, I didn't have any of those experiences. I just felt like I felt a deep melancholy, which is what I think Yorgos was going for. But I felt that because I transposed it onto my life. You even tweeted about it. And you talked about how this is like me and Chad. Like I just felt about how, older, getting older. It's kind of coming of age, except they're grown already. Like
they're grown. I
they're
wouldn't
grown
call it coming
already.
of age. I would say it's more of a fear of loss.
Fear of loss. Okay.
Yeah. So it's more
Yeah.
grieving. The majority of the film is more grieving. And it's like in that realm of films that you don't really think is about grief until you get to like towards the end.
Yeah. Like the
And
final
you know that
act.
there's no like coming back. Like it's like I'd place it in that box with Sound of Metal,
Yeah.
where like you do everything you can and it still doesn't change the outcome that you have lost something.
Interesting. That's
The only thing
interesting.
is that
Very
Banshees of
critic.
Inisherin is very much like a period piece.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Sound of Metal is like a lot of these
That's some
movies.
good. That's some
Yeah.
good critical analysis. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Hmm. Thank you,
But
thank you.
okay, poor
I
things.
too be cooking. Okay, but
Poor
back to
things.
Poor Things at Yorgos. Yeah.
Do you want to start? Should I start?
Okay, I'll start. So,
Okay.
as everyone knows, Poor Things is a movie that came out this year. Emma Stone is the star of that film. So I'm not
Mhm.
going to give too much away right now about the plot. But yeah, it was directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, and it's a great film. And I feel like it features his signature bizarre visual
Mhm.
flair thing. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't do movies that are like
Traditional.
normal. It's like in that
Yeah.
Edward Scissorhands esque vibes. You get me?
Yeah.
Them Alice in Wonderland kind of vibes. There's always like an air of like almost bizarreness,
Yeah. He doesn't do
and
normal. I said he's
sometimes
quirky.
it's used as a humorous thing, but sometimes it's not. It's just like part of the story. So I would
Mhm.
say like sometimes it's useful, but sometimes it's not. And he also
Okay.
has like those extreme wide angles, those like almost landscape like shots.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the first things that comes to my mind is how do you feel about like his visual style? Like in comparison to like his other things like The Lobster and The Favorite.
Okay. So this actually is what I was going to say. Like my review, my it leads into my review of the film. So I've only ever seen The Lobster and The Killing of Sacred Deer, so I'm not like the Yorgos expert or whatever. And I only saw this, I think I said on the podcast when I started my Yorgos watch in preparation for reporting. But this is the most experimental I've seen from Yorgos. Every aspect of the film, especially like you just said, the visual, but every aspect, including the color grading. There's a lot of fisheye lenses here and there, and the panel shots. Like there's some panoramic shots. They're like the wide landscape that he does, but some of these are more like panel. And even the
Mhm.
scoring, like the music, was like a little Jabajantis. And
Yeah.
I just felt like it was a little different from. It seems like you're about to say something crazy.
No. I'm just listening to you.
Oh yeah, it feels like so different from his prior works. The visuals in this case, like there's some, especially when they're on that boat ship thing going to France, or that where she met Jared Carmichael, that boat
Yeah.
place, and then they went to that restaurant place. That seemed like there were some visual effects, some VFX or CGI going on there, which I haven't seen from Yorgos before, except for obviously when with the animals or whatever. So this seemed very experimental, but it all worked. And it kind of adds into the bizarreness of the story. Like the story is very bizarre, which is Yorgos is no stranger to a bizarre story, but all of that just added to bring the story to life. Like you wouldn't. I'm trying to imagine this being a regular, you know, shot on film, 70 or whatever, regular film with like an animal with the head of a pig and the body of a chicken. Like it just would look. It wouldn't hit as much as it does with the bizarre color grading and
Yeah, I
whatever.
completely understand what you mean. It takes it into like this like Alice in Wonderland-esque vibes
Hmm.
where you're kind of expecting weird stuff.
Exactly.
But did you know it's based off a book?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's like part of it. It's a bit of a book like written in I think 1992
Okay.
by Alasdair Gray. And it's like a 19th century world thing. So this was all intentional.
Interesting.
So he had
Okay.
source material for this,
Okay.
which you know how I feel about like, if you have source material, like sometimes, it's a little easier. It's a little easier,
I'm once
Dune's
again
coming out
fighting.
very
I'm once
soon.
again fighting for Denis,
Dune's coming
and
out very soon. We've had this
it's
topic
not
about
easy
Denny
to
for a
adapt.
minute, but
If everyone could adapt something from print to the big screen, then everyone will be doing it. It's not easy, bro, because you're
okay,
working with another person's vision.
it's no problem. There's no
There's a
problem.
reason why
I'm not
there's
saying
separate
it's easy.
awards. There's a reason why there's separate awards for them, because it's almost you're creating a story. Source
You're
material or not,
adapting a
it's only
story, McSteve. That's what the word is called. It's called
you're
adapted
creating a
screenplay.
screenplay,
You're adapting. It's okay.
adapting from another person's vision. You're creating something. It's the same thing as original. This is just
Mm,
another person's vision that you bring into life with your
okay,
own
McSteve.
direction.
However you feel,
I'm a
whatever
ride for the
gets you,
knee. I'm a ride for the
whatever
knee.
makes you happy.
But yeah, I didn't know it was from a book. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's based off a book, and you can kind of. I feel like that was one of the first things I googled as soon as I left the cinema. I was like, "Was
Uh-huh.
this based off of a book?" Like, because it really feels like it feels like it's a book. It doesn't feel like a movie. You know what I mean? There's just
Okay.
certain movies that you can just like the way the story unfolds. You can just kind of feel like this is a book.
Okay.
Yeah, like
I
you can
can
almost feel the dog ears.
I think the reason why I agree with that is because the acts and the scenes are so divided, like
Hmm.
when we go from chapter to chapter in her story, in Emma's story, um, it's so well divided, the different cities and the different sets. It's like different stages. I guess
Yeah,
I'm trying to say it feels like a play also, like how each chapter, it's not like a transitioning. I mean, it is transitions, but yeah, I can see how that
I
would
think it
be a bit.
transitions because of the nature of the film.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's the main characters of the film are Emma Stone playing Bella Baxter,
Daniel
and
Baxter.
again, this is something about the alliterating names. This is something about the alliterating names. Like it cooks. But yeah, Bella Baxter, and she's portraying a woman with the mind of an infant.
Hmm.
Exploring her new world. Then Willem Dafoe plays Dr. Goodwin Baxter, protective, and confining guardian.
Hmm.
It's interesting because there are times where like you're like, huh, I don't think I'd have this conversation and this. Do you get what I mean?
What do you mean?
like just the way that their
Like Bella
relationship
and
is set up,
Godwin. Okay.
and like
Oh,
the
okay.
openness in the conversation.
Okay. But that's
Yeah,
because, you know, I think that was intentional because she calls him God for most. I don't even remember her calling him. What's his name? Godwin or Godson? Godwin?
His name is Godwin.
Godwin. Yeah, I don't remember her calling him Godwin. She calls him God, which is obviously the short form of Godwin, but
I don't know if it's
it's
that. Can't lie.
but no, that's what I'm saying. That's intentional because obviously you're hearing God. You're just hearing her call him God, and so it's like that's her God, like that's her maker because she was created, you
Mm,
know. And when you talk to God, when you pray, those are like that's how you talk to. You wouldn't like you would talk to your God in a way in a conversation. If you were to have a conversation with Jesus right now, it would be like a conversation way. It wouldn't be. I don't think necessarily think it would be father son way. You know what I mean? So that's how I felt that was
no, I get
portrayed.
that.
Yeah.
Especially because I think it adds another layer to the film and like a Frankenstein-esque vibe.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Uh
Like
huh.
Frankenstein's monster and everything. It adds just like that other layer to it. But I think the last like really outstanding performance in the film was Mark Ruffalo playing Duncan
Chanel.
Wedderburn,
Yeah.
and like his just like the way he introduces Bella to like love and philosophy is like very interesting. It's very fun. I
Yeah.
feel like there's a lot like as just as a viewer that you can take
Hmm.
away from that.
Yeah. And the impact that Bella also has in him, that's another layer as well. You know, like okay, he introduces her to a lot of things, but then he's very integral. He's very key in her growth or her coming
Hmm.
of age. And then conversely, after she has achieved womanhood, if you can call it that,
Yeah,
um, the tides are turning, the tables are flipped, and we start to see it as she's leading this man to have a very strong severe mental breakdown. Basically, changes the course of his life. He's never met anyone like her. He says that he displays that, and the story shows that. And he goes to jail, he goes broke, he's stranded, and just all of this changes in his life by virtue of Bella's impact. So I think there's multiple layers there. He's a very key character. He's very interesting as well, and that character could not have been portrayed by many people. So I think I have to give Mark Ruffalo my flowers or his flowers for that role. And speaking of going off of that, I'm going to even extend that to the rest of the cast. Like again, like I said, like this is or it feels very experimental from Yorgos, but it would not have worked, and I stand by that. It would not have worked if like the cast did not bring his vision to life. There is a lot of fantastic acting in here. The general critic body is not saying this is carried by acting because it's a technical masterpiece, a technical marvel, but it's all brought to life by fantastic acting. Rami, who I've only seen in Rami, so which
you
is the
haven't
top.
seen? Oh yeah, Rami Malek is
Yeah,
pretty. He does a great performance
I've
too.
only seen him in the Hulu show Rami, so this is surprisingly good from him, like really, really surprisingly good. Willem Dafoe, obviously, that's not no surprise there. He's amazing in this. Marco Fallo, and when they all go through the different, especially Rami and Mark, when they go through the different acts, like they fit right in with the changing because the Bella is ever changing. She's growing, right? And so the film changes with Bella. Even color grading wise, it starts off black and white. Eventually, it's like full HD color. It starts off with um pretty infant like dressing until we transition into like full on gowns and full on dresses and flowy dresses. And Mark and Rami both change with the ever like transitioning tone of the film, which is to match Bella's growth. Yeah, I just think Mark is a chameleon in this. He bounces back off Bella and Willem, and he just absorbs and feeds back, and he doesn't feel like anyone's skipping a beat. So I think the acting is tremendous, but hats off to Mark, especially and Bella, obviously. Yeah,
I definitely hear what you're saying because that was one of the next things I was going to talk, like the visual style and how that adds to the film because that transition from like black and white to vibrant colors
yeah.
for me it really symbolized like Bella's liberation
Okay, yeah,
because I felt like one of the major themes of the film was like that whole Victorian femininity and the infantilization of women, and now we're advocating for the self-discovery and empowerment aspect of things.
yeah. I hear it sounds a little bit to me like you're calling this a feminist masterpiece. Is that what you're saying, my guy?
Steve, we talked about this last episode. Yes, Poor Things is a feminist masterpiece. It's like a great coming of age film from a very different perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just teasing.
Yeah, it's a great female liberation film.
It's because it's interesting because if you're just watching it if you're just taking it in, right, first watch, a lot of the ethics are going to really like scare you. Like, okay, let's just be frank here. I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but um, it's a baby. Like
Hmm.
technically, you know, we're introducing her to sex and all of that, but it's like the mind of a child. So it's like, has she achieved the age of consent? Or when where she's just discovering she's going through puberty, if you'll call it that, and she's just discovering masturbation and self gratification, and this man is sneaking up to her room and then he's just touching her, like, without asking, without saying, he just touches her right down there, and she realizes she likes that. It's like, okay, what is going on right here? Like, she did she
I think
she
that yeah, that's part of some of the common critiques about
Yeah,
it. So there are gray aspects, but I think again, a lot of these aspects were they were key in her becoming who she currently like who she ends up being at the end of the film.
yeah.
They
Mhm.
weren't innately traumatic, but
I agree.
they helped in development and they were what I would call gray. And I feel
Definitely
like
agree.
that's also part of adulting because that's how like the film is really about. It's there are there are gray areas in your becoming. Like as an adult, there will be gray areas that you will experience and you will not really know how to process. And maybe
Yeah,
you're lucky. There are things that you can like overstep. They just contribute to your growth positively. But other times, it might be a bit worse.
yeah,
But I'm happy for her. It was like on the beneficial side, but it definitely reminded me of like I mentioned earlier, like Edward Scissorhands and like Frankenstein, like especially for like Edward Scissorhands, like it's like like navigating through the human world, and again, like I said, feeds into that whole like becoming an adult thing, like how you have to navigate all those things and navigate like real life. And it just, I feel like it's just so key, and it's such an interesting film. It's such an interesting concept.
it is. It is.
Yeah,
And it's not it makes sense that it's an adaptation of a book. It's not a story that I've never seen any, let me just say that I've never seen anything like this. Visually
yeah.
and
That's another thing that I was saying because I feel like some of what you are discussing or some of what you just talked about would be more palpable in a book
hmm
than actually seeing it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can read about it, but like when you see him
See it
going up and all of
happen.
that, you're like,
Yeah.
ah, that just
Exactly. It
yeah.
just
You're like,
adds that layer. It visualizes the ethics of it all because, if I guess when you read about a grown person with the brain of a child, you're not necessarily thinking that in a very literal sense. You're kind of thinking of it as a metaphor, like, oh, an
yeah. You're
immature
thinking about
woman.
just delayed learning paths.
Yes, but
Yeah,
this time around, you're actually seeing visually that it's a child.
yeah.
It's it proper, like, thinks like a child, talks like a child, walks like a child, but in the body of a woman. So it just adds it compounds the not immoral. I don't want to call it immoral, but like you just think of the ethics of it all and the morality of it all, and it's more in your face. And I think that's another thing. I didn't say this, but this is also Yorgos playing more with the ideas of love, sex, gender, intimacy, shame.
Yeah, I think
And I
definitely he
read that.
developed in this film more than we've seen in previous films,
Yeah.
where it's like in previous films, it's almost like implied. It's not really talked about as much. But I think again, the source content of this makes him have to like show these and direct these in the way that they would be beneficial. And I don't know if Rami helped with
What did
this
you say?
because he does direct also, which is like interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so Rami also directs, so like that's interesting. And I think also like Emma Stone's some of her previous roles kind of like led up or like fed into this, if you get what I mean.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
I don't know, it fits. It fits.
It's
Yeah.
perfect casting too. Just like you said, because of her previous roles,
Hmm.
set her up for this. Sorry, go on.
And I think again, like going back to the whole God and creator theme that we talked about earlier, there's that like that whole point where she starts like rebelling.
Mm-hmm.
It just made me like immediately in my head, yeah, there's a prodigal son kind of vibes. Yeah, it's prodigal son vibes. I don't need this. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. And, more moving on to some of the more technical aspects. I guess it's nominated for, I don't have the nominees in front of me. It's nominated for a bunch of technical roles, but I
It's
think,
nominated for so much.
so yeah, but I think the where it best excels, so not best, because I can't even say where it best excels, probably directing. But one of the really key areas are the makeup and hairstyling and the costume design, because those are getting paramount to the story. The makeup, because we need to see the deformities. It helps us visualize what horrors God went through as a child. Because he talks about it. He talks about what his dad did to him, like the surgeries or whatever. But seeing his deformed face and his deformed body, it helps
Yes,
it helps put it into perspective what kind of childhood he really had and what would lead a man to perform these kind of surgeries. um
exactly.
and then because Bella is growing, the makeup changes with that, the hairstyling changes with her growth to signify that, and at the end she's a full-blown woman mentally and physically, and that changes with her. Same thing with the costume design. Everything is so key, man. Every dress fits perfectly in her. Like in the beginning, she's wearing like PJs, or what I would call like olden, like to
Like
fit the
her
time.
style develops. Yeah,
Yeah, her style develops, and then eventually she goes from dress to dress to dress, and in the end, she's wearing that really green, really flowy dress, and it signifies her. She's now a lady. She's a lady of the house. It fits her body like a glove, but it also fits the scene like a glove. I think that's an easy winner this year. I sat down the last episode. I'm reiterating that Barbie cannot win costume design over this. Um, but yeah, Emma Stone, she's the bedrock of the film. It doesn't work without her. It's
it
obviously,
really doesn't. It
it
really
really does
doesn't.
not work without her. And boy, does it work. She puts in the shift and a half. Um, masterful acting. We're really seeing like a master at work here with her. And there's different men that she has interactions and relationships with, and she just shines through it all. Um, The Gerard Carmichael cameo, let me just say that for a little bit. I thought it was very. I didn't want to make it a race thing, but I thought it was very off-putting.
I'm dying.
I thought it was
Because I
very
thought you didn't
off-putting.
like. I was gonna
Like
say like
Gerard
you
Carmichael,
bringing him
yeah.
up is interesting because I feel like you don't like Gerald
I don't like
Carmichael.
him. Yeah, I don't like
Yeah,
him. I don't like anything that he's in. I don't like watching him actually. I've definitely like passed on films that I was going to see just because he was in it. But I'm not that much a hater that I wouldn't recognize when someone does a good job. So initially
says
I thought it was very off.
ethical hating.
I thought it was very off-putting, but he seemed like the most learned man in terms of like liberal arts. He seemed very learned, and that was also key to Bella's development. Like
Yeah,
the breakdown she had when she realized the world is unfair. That was courtesy of Jared Carmichael. And there's a line that he said that stuck with me, and I also wrote it down. He said, "You can't change the world. We are a fucked species. Know it. Don't accept the lie of socialism or capitalism. Hope is smashable. Realism is not. Hope is smashable. Realism is not." And that's that's Bella's. I want to say it's a defining moment, because after that, like everything leading up to that, she's just going along with the man or with whatever is going on. And then after that, she's not placing her hopes in in any rich man. She's not placing her hopes in anyone to save her or save the world. She tries
yeah.
to help those poor people, and it doesn't work. And she has to become a realist after that. And she goes into France to start prostituting, and making money off of that. But after that, you can just see her taking her own life into her own hand, and she's not, going to be reliant on some guy after that. So yeah, hats off to Jared with this.
Hats off to Jared Carmichael in that role. Especially you turned Steve from a hater to a listener. So
I'm still a hater, man. Don't get it
yeah,
twisted. I still don't like that,
at
man.
least for that little moment, man, you turned from a hater to a listener. But
Yeah.
I think another interesting thing is like going back, pivoting through like coming of age theme through like a unique protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
First thing that came to my mind was the Shape of Water,
Yeah.
the 2017 Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, bro.
I know you love Del Toro. I know you love
I
Guillermo,
do. Yeah.
but just in my head, I'm just like, how do you feel about, I guess, like the comparisons, how like my mind is linking those two films? Because the truth is like they are very unconventional characters who are like have like this, and it's just like this humanization of the other, and they explore like love and other themes.
Yeah. So confession, I haven't seen Shape of Water.
Really? Oh
I haven't.
yeah. Okay, yeah, I remember that. I my bad for setting
No,
you up.
you good. You good. Yeah.
I hate watched, bro. I heard the scene, like there's a sex scene in it, and I'm like, how?
I thought that's the one thing that I know about it. Even I don't know. Isn't that
Yeah, there's like
the
an iffy
defining
sex
plot
scene in it,
line?
and I was like, pause. Yeah,
The cover art even it's like they're hugging, like she's hugging
yeah,
him.
yeah. They're like
Yeah,
cuddling in this tank or
yeah,
something, and I'm just like,
yeah,
what's going on? What's going on? But I feel like this and Pan's Labyrinth, Del Toro would have been the guy if you wanted this specific movie. Do you get what I mean? If you
yeah.
wanted this coming of age, unique character vibes, and you want some bizarreness, some weirdness thrown around that contributes to the story.
I think the
Like he
my
just has
issue.
like so much more experience with that historical reality,
Mhm.
blending it with like those fantasy elements that just make like the storytelling like
That's
deeper.
so that's what I was going to say. I think the issue is Del Toro's bizarreness is more whimsical, more fantasy.
Okay, fair.
This felt like we're connecting or we're able to have this serious conversation with this because it feels real. Like it feels real almost. It feels very not almost. It feels real. It feels like this is a real story that could happen. Obviously, we know it's not possible.
Mm,
It's not, but it's believable when depicted on screen. With the different dresses and the use of real places and real elements. Um, but that's just the key distinction. But I could see the Del Toro doing this. It's just going to be a little bit more whimsical fantasy. But yeah, especially coming of age, that's his niche, that's his domain. He gets that um really well. But shout out Yorgos.
shout out Yorgos.
Not many not many directors can have this in their bag, and he delivers.
I definitely think like his I don't okay, so I really like his evolution as a filmmaker
Yeah,
and like how he's like he keeps tackling like newer, more niche things.
yeah,
And it's like kudos to him. Kudos to him.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
And I feel
But
like
yeah,
this is not to be that guy, but I feel like this is one of those like movies that you could definitely go to college during like a gender studies class or you're in an English class and they could assign you go watch Poor Things. Then there's like, oh, like you get an
yeah,
exam. It's like, how does this film reflect the cultural or societal concerns or cultural trends? Blah blah
yeah,
blah. You get what I
yeah.
mean? But like, I think it strikes the balance of being like a very academic movie where you can have that kind of discussion for, and also being like a good vibe. Like this is a good, fun, comfy movie. Yeah.
And it's also again like a technical marvel. You could watch this in a film class, in a regular film class. The way Citizen Kane gets assigned to first year film major. You could also study this because again, the scoring very haphazard, very Japajantis, but there's a lot to learn from the fisheye lenses, which I haven't seen from Yorgos ever. Well, I've only seen two films.
Hmm.
But again, it doesn't feel out of place. That's the thing. That's why I keep saying the color grading doesn't feel out of place. The panel shots, the wide shots, the CGI, nothing feels out of place.
Nothing
So
feels out of place.
it's
Yeah.
it's a, it's a lot that you can learn from, like you just said, and gender studies in learning about womanhood or whatever, but also learning about film and filmmaking.
Okay, so now my next question is to pivot away from Yorgos. Will you be watching Madam Web?
I was not
Because I
expecting
know
that
you're a
at
Sydney
all.
Sweeney fan.
I was not expecting that
I
at
know you're a
all.
Sydney Sweeney fan. Would you be watching Madam Web,
I'm
my guy?
watching
Tell
it,
me.
obviously. So I could not tell you the last time I did not see a Marvel movie. I genuinely goes back to I did a list one time. I've seen everything Marvel's put out in theaters since like 2000 and I don't know 9, 10.
I
So
could have
yes,
sworn. I thought Madam Web was like Sony.
it's Sony Marvel.
It's
Yeah,
Sony Marvel.
yeah.
Oh,
So it's Sony
okay.
Marvel, and I don't. I defended Morbius. That's Sony Marvel. I defended Morbius to whatever. Yeah, and I lost that battle ridiculously. So I need to see this one, and I best believe I'll be defending them. I have to live with for the rest of my days. But I'll be seeing that. I'll be seeing that. I'm excited,
That's
because
fair.
I don't think it's as bad as people are making it to be. But I have to see to decide.
Oh my god, the trailer looked
The trailer
horrendous,
looked
bro.
horrible. Yeah, the trailer was terrible. But then the trailer for Morbius was also horrible, and it wasn't that bad.
No, it was a bad movie. Morbius is a horrible movie, bro. I think I saw it for free, and I still felt like I wasted my money. Like I wasted the gas to go there.
Morbius, I'll fight for you. I'll defend you till forever.
I'm
Don't worry
fucking
about it.
dying.
But
But Dune Part 2 comes out February 25th. That is the highlight. I wish they
yeah.
I wish it came out on Valentine's Day so we could really see what's going on. Let's see, does love win?
So Dune, obviously, that I've been looking forward to that. It's been my most anticipated film since I saw part one. I saw, so I went back to see it in IMAX Dune part one and included a sneak peek of part two. And ever since then, they've had a bunch of press, and at each press, they play like a new snippet. And I've been,
Mhm.
deciding if I should follow those snippets or just avoid them. So I've been watching all the snippets. Basically, how do I put this? Nolan saw it. Nolan saw the preview and said, "This is
And yeah, he said it's this
Empire Strikes
generation's The
Back."
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, and then a bunch of other critics have also seen it, because they had viewings, and they said it's Villeneuve's The Dark Knight, which was the sequel to
Yeah.
Batman Begins. So is it Batman Begins? Yeah, Batman Begins. So I'm just like, okay, so since these are the two touted, heavily touted, whatever sequels of our generation. And it seems like no one has anything else to compare it to. That's what everyone's comparing it to. But for me, I don't see it as the sequel because I know there's a third part coming out. And I know Dune Messiah is going to be the culmination of this magical story. Dune Part 2 is necessary. It's we're getting to actually see Paul as, with the Fremen, with the Iraqis. We're getting to see him rise. He's going to take on the Emperor, and it's the culmination of the coming of age. But I'm not comparing it to any of these other sequels or part twos or whatever, because I think it's a lot bigger. I think there's a chance for more. He's working with the best composers, Hans Zimmer. He's working with the best cinematographers, Greg Fraser. He's working with a very stellar ensemble cast. So for me, it's just eclipses everything. I think there's going to be, after Dune Part 2 has come out and gone, I think everyone is going to start referring to what they previously referred to as The Dark Knight, The Empire Strikes Back, as the Dune Part 2. And I'm
I
very
get that.
hopeful. I have my tickets already. I'm seeing it twice already. I have 2 tickets already. So I'm seeing it February 25th and
Mm.
March 1st. And yeah, we'll be talking
Yeah,
about
I'm
that
100%.
heavily.
I feel like I'm going to watch Dune not because I love Dune and I'm looking forward to Dune, but more
Hmm.
so it just feels like it's something you have to do. Do you
So
get me? I'm
that's
not really
actually
excited for it, but it just kind of feels like I know that on this podcast we're gonna have to talk about it, and I say have to
oh.
because I am dreading it because you've been talking about Dune nonstop since I've known you. Honestly, it's like damn, bro. There's other things out there. Yeah,
That's fine, but that leads me to my question. So you had tweeted that Dune is going to try to market as the event of the year, but it's not going to work because I guess people have to want to see it as opposed to Barbara.
yeah. It has to be an organic thing. Do you get
And
what I
the,
mean?
the
The
reason
problem
why
is that, like for example, the reasons why we saw record breaking. I think the record breaking
numbers,
for let's go pretty far back. Black Panther.
okay,
People wanted to see black superhero main
Yeah.
character, massive black cast,
Yeah.
black director,
Yeah.
crazy black everything,
Yeah.
music, everything.
Yeah.
Then let's come up more recent. I'm skipping a lot of fucking years now,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
come up more recent to like the most recent, like biggest blockbuster, which is for movies that these movies are not Marvel movies. These are not superhero movies, which is
Yeah.
like a shocking. Well, we're getting cinema back.
Yeah.
We're bringing real cinema back. But basically, Barbie and
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer,
Yeah.
which honestly, on everything, these movies, based on length and content of these movies,
We're making
typically
the
would not be billion-dollar movies.
making that. Yeah.
They would not normally be billion-dollar movies,
I
but they
agree.
were organically like they organically became like the movies of the year. I think
Yeah.
honestly, Oppenheimer even what was their marketing budget? It felt like $10 on a dream. It
Yeah,
genuinely
100.
felt like
It
they
was
did.
100. It was 100. He got 100
Bro,
million.
it was. They barely did anything for marketing.
Yeah.
Barbie did a great marketing.
Yep.
Then you have to remember that, like, I think right before, like at one point, the strike hit, so they couldn't really even market
They
anymore.
couldn't do press. Like the cast had
Couldn't do
limited
no
press.
press
Yeah.
runs. Like I feel like they went
Yeah.
from like their only press run or major press thing straight to the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
So that's what I'm
remember.
saying. Like I feel like Dune is gonna push this out as the film of the year, the film that we have to get to, blah blah blah. But the problem is the nature of the film Dune just doesn't appeal to as many people.
Do we want to
Like quite
do?
honestly, and I feel like that's where it's gonna fall short.
Do we want to
It
do
just doesn't.
numbers?
What do you say?
Do we want to guess numbers?
I don't want to throw out numbers. I genuinely don't want to throw out numbers. But I feel like it's just a movie it's going to be a great movie. The cast is great. I understand why they pushed it back because the cast is phenomenal.
Which is
They
why
needed
I'm
the
so
cast to do the press
confident
runs. Again, like
the
that's the major
turnout.
thing that they pushed it
Yeah.
back for because they needed the cast to do the press run so that
Yeah.
they can continue to market it as the event of the year.
But the cast has been succeeding in doing such a successful press run, and we have this unfounded chemistry between Florence Pugh and Zendaya and Austin Butler and Timothée Chalamet, which we didn't know before. That's bound to spur
I
a
don't
lot
know.
more
I'm
people
going to
to
be
do.
honest with you. I think for me, I see a lot of the chemistry between Chalamet and Zendaya. No one else. No one else.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. That's definitely something with Florence and Zendaya especially.
I
Austin
think
Butler is a weirdo in the sense that he's very since that Elvis whole thing, he's just become very like serious, and so it doesn't show up. It doesn't come up naturally.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like people are hating him too much for the Elvis thing.
I agree too. I
He
like him
spent
in
2 years
Elvis.
mastering the vocal texture and learning how to speak like Elvis. That stays with you. Like people shouldn't like it's 2 years of like any kind of work experience. It would stay with you.
Yeah, I
Like don't do
agree.
that. Plus, he also grew up during that time.
Exactly.
Like he became older. Like
Hmm.
it's 2 years, man. Like he's going to become a different person, just generally.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
And
just feel like a
he
lot of
also
people are
got
like,
nominated. He also got nominated for an Oscar for that role. It wasn't. It really, really was not that bad. Like I don't know. The film itself wasn't great. The film itself was okay at best.
yeah,
But
it
his
was okay.
performance as Elvis was really good. Like
What's
so,
crazy
I just
is
feel like the
that
hate has been unwarranted. But yeah,
yeah, I think another thing is that kind of crazy to talk about, but Jacob Elordi was a better Elvis.
I think we're getting to the end of this because I cannot even agree with that.
Really,
I cannot
man,
agree with that. I cannot
man,
agree
Jacob
with
Elordi
that.
was a better Elvis. There's nothing you can tell me. But before we cap off, I don't know if you've noticed that Apple TV funded a new movie called Argyle.
200.
200 it's like making, I think it made like 6.5,
I saw that. It made 6.
6.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, not 6.5, like 6.5 million in opening day. This is a regular weekend, nothing
So,
crazy happened.
so the thing is, the reason why I don't even, Apple. Obviously, we know that Apple is whatever $3 trillion company, blah blah blah. This is an investment. Everything that's been happening from the past, bro. They pay what's it called? Jennifer Aniston and
Mhm.
Witherspoon two
Yeah,
million per episode. The
yeah,
number of people that watch the morning show is genuinely less than 100 worldwide, globally. Nobody watches that show. You know what I mean? And they pay like they're pumping money into these. I don't know how much they paid Killers of Harmon to get that. They're the distributor for that. I cannot even imagine, but I know it's a lot of money. So they're throwing this money, and it's an investment. They also got the distributing rights for Napoleon. So they're just trying to build their catalog.
yeah.
Eventually
I
they're
think
going
I
to
think they're
get
absolutely trying to build their
yeah, and
catalog,
everything just gets
and I
written
think the
off.
thing with Argyle is that it's Argyle is kind of an iffy thing because apparently the movie rights were sold before the movie came out. I'm sorry, before the book
Oh,
came out.
interesting.
Yeah, so before they published the book, you get what I mean. So and like the movie kind of hinges on this, like it's not like a who done it, but it's kind of like a who's who
Who's the
kind
spy?
of moment.
Who's Agent Arja or whatever?
Yeah, who's Agent Argyle,
Yeah.
and like I think like months earlier, that discussing film Twitter
She
account
said who the agent.
was tweeted it by
What?
mistake, and it's so funny because for me now, like already I could kind of tell like the movie was not like I love myself a good spy film. I love
Yeah.
it, but I have personal beef with Matthew Vaughn because I love Kingsman. For him to just tank Kingsman and blow it up to go do other things, I'm like, what's going on, my guy? That first movie was meant to set up as a new age Bond.
Yeah. That's really what. Oh my god, that's what it was meant to be.
Yeah. 2015 or 2016. When did that come out? Maybe 2013, honestly.
Whatever.
That was meant to be the new age Bond.
Yeah.
Super
2014.
Gen Z, very
Mm.
British, fun time, attractive characters. It was a great time. They even threw in some blacks, give us Samuel L. Jackson there. Great it's a great time. Yeah. But now we go Argyle and I'm just like, what are we doing? Like I just don't have any desire to see it because like I saw some of the trailers and I'm just like, why does this look so choppy? You get me? It doesn't
I'm
feel like
I'm
it's a
going to
good movie.
eventually I'm going to just see it just for the sake of it.
No, absolutely. When it comes on streaming though, I already pay for Apple TV. I don't need to go in cinema.
Yeah. But anyway, I have had a great time this episode.
This has
If you
been a great
haven't seen
episode.
Poor Things, my apologies, but it's been out for a while now. I think you should have seen it.
You should
Um,
go see Poor Things before
go see
it,
Poor Things if you
goes
haven't.
out. If
Yeah.
you want, you can do your double feature and pick up Argyle. Give them some money. Give them some money. They need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. This has been a great episode of the TCA. We love to be here with you guys. Episode's going to be out soon. Hope you guys have a great day.
Talk to you next time.
See you next time.